Okay, this is the photograph we're going to work from. I did this exact same photograph in a tracing layer series quite some time ago, and it worked out rather well. But back then it was an oil-based painting, which means we took 100% opaque light colors back over dark. This time we're going to do a transparent watercolor in the traditional sense. In other words, we'll work from light to dark and no return. Now we are going to use all of the digital advantages we will have, like the lock transparency, layer mask, and so on, but we're still only going to go from light to dark just to see how we could do. Let's go ahead and start our game plan and see how we're going to attack this. Okay, now to do this in transparent watercolors, the first thing we have to do is isolate the lightest areas. When we first start putting color down, this right in here is going to be the nice focal point of our painting because it's a real dark lamp up against a light vignetted oval, if you will. And then everything else is just kind of dark, and most of these pieces are lost within each other. Now what we need to do is we will build texture layers and take advantage of multiple layers versus just one sheet of paper. But I did do grapes on a single layer. I'll put that link up now if you want to really challenge yourself. But what I will do in this one is just use multiple layers. We'll build up textures, and then anything we create that we really like, leave it as a separate layer and then move on to another one so we don't disturb what we have done so far. Now what I will do is be working with my still same color palette, and that would be these 28 colors down here. And we will obviously use the quinacridone gold to start off with right here, and then move on to our deeper browns. This is the raw umber, burnt umber, and this is the sepia. And then we could also add in some blues, whether it be the cobalt blue or the French ultramarine, and start making a little bit of the grays. We'll mix those out as we go also. And then we will also use a blender brush to soften some of the edges. I also have a mop brush right here. And all that is just a soft-edged wet brush. That will keep our settings at the right here at pretty much the same. Now I speeded up my diffusion speed. If it gets too fast, we could turn that back. But everything is pretty much as is. If we have any kind of cauliflower issues, meaning that the wet brush stroke carries the color out to the edge of the brush stroke, then we could turn our re-wet down. But we're going to try and leave these just as they are because we'll be working on multiple layers anyway, and we may want that effect if we need a little bit of texture. That would be adding the water tool splatter back over a color and leaving it give us a subtle texture. But when you're working on multiple layers, the settings right here can be pretty forgiving. Okay, now what I'm going to do is minimize this picture, take a good look at it, and then we're going to start painting it. That way it'll maximize my work area so you can really see what's going on. Let's go ahead and get started with our painting. Okay, one hot quick tip before I go here and start painting. If we have a hard time seeing our drawing up against the gray background, because we're going to be using a lot of grays and a lot of dark colors. So if your colors start running into your painting and you still want to know what's going on with your drawing, then just go over to the drawing layer, duplicate it. Now remember, I'm duplicating a layer that's only at 30% opacity. So what I want to do is I will zoom in, lock the transparency, and then pick out a nice vibrant color and then just go over it. Now, since I have it on transparent right here, the first one, it's going to put a red over a gray. So if I really want it vibrant for this particular layer, I could just make it opaque and then it will make it a strong red line. So then that way, if you need to really see where you're going with a red or a yellow line up against a medium to dark grays, then you'll still be able to have your drawing intact. Otherwise, if you turn that off, you'll be back to a gray, and that's it. let's go ahead and start painting. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to turn off the diffusion to give us all the time we need. I'm going to cut back the size of the brush, and we're going to start with quinacridone gold. And since our diffusion is off, we'll have all the time we need to put down these colors, because I'm going to go into a raw umber on top of this, and they will pretty much stay where I put them now, because I'm not going to wet the background, not for this layer anyway. But I got full amount of water in these, so they should diffuse together. And all these, the shadow, the post itself, it's going to be fairly dark, so we don't have to worry about going over it. And then we could take a mask and clean up some of these edges if they're real bright and sharp later on, and fine tune our shadow areas. We're going to make some texture, and then I may take the water tool back over this just to get a very subtle texture. I'm going to take my raw umber back over this, especially where the darker areas are. Let them blend together. The front wall is kind of a little bit more goldish, so I'll be careful with the brown there. Raw umber. This is definitely dark down in here. Okay, we'll let that blend. We'll turn on the diffusion. Now here comes the fun part. I'm also going to go back to my water tool, fast dry it, because that will make a difference, and then take water back over it. And this is where it'll start to cauliflower out. That's okay. This is going to be the texture layer, and we'll get rid of some of the hard edges at the same time. We'll create new ones, but as we leave it blend, they will disappear. Okay, I left it go for a while. These are the subtle shapes and blending I'm looking for my texture. Just kind of a splotchy type blend. No real hard edges, just uneven colors, more or less. Now we'll leave this for our texture layer, and we'll keep adding some layers on top of this. We'll use the same colors, and then we will also sharpen up our edges at the very end, but we got to add more color right now and build up on the darker areas. Let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, what I'm going to do next is, since we are going to be working with multiple layers, I am going to create a layer, and we'll just call it lamp. And that's one nice thing about working with multiple layers. You could go back in and do other things since they will be separate. So in other words, I'll darken up my lamp just to see where it'll be compared to all of the rest of the values in the painting. But what I also want to do is I am going to create another layer and just call it lamp mask. And then what I'm going to do is paint the entire lamp area of all the bronze that I want to be bronze in a black. And then I will use that black to select that area, so I could use texture brushes and not worry about going up to an edge with a texture brush. This way I don't have to use straight edge brushes. The selected area will maintain all of my brush strokes within that area. Let's go ahead and paint this in black. I even have a mask brush just for that. And what this will allow me to do, instead of trying to paint different colors as I go, and they will diffuse together, that would be correct. But I would much rather paint these areas, and then later on, since this is digital, I can even duplicate this and save it as is, but then even splash wet water over it if I want to diffuse the edge a little bit. This is just a way we're going to get a little bit creative and use the many different ways we could create something in a digital way. I'm going to go ahead and speed paint this in black, and then we will go from there. Okay, that took a little while, but the big advantage I'm going to have here is I'll be able to use my texture brushes. I can't use those texture brushes up to a straight edge. They'll just leave me with all kind of soft white spots and uneven edges that I would want. This way, now that I have this saved as a layer, I could select it and use it as a selection and protected area anytime I want. And then this way I could go back in with my textured brushes and create all kind of very subtle textures throughout this shape, and then go back in later on and work with the roof of it here too, the top lids and everything. Put some real shiny, nice, crisp blue, things of that nature. But what it will do is it will give me the opportunity to try many different ways and leave the paint blend. But then if it doesn't, I could just erase it out, create another layer, try another layer, and even give myself a couple of different layers to choose from as to what I want the best. Because in some cases, it's pretty difficult to try and control what the colors are actually going to do once they start mixing. Let's go ahead and get started with the rest of everything now that we have our mask done. Okay, now that we got our lamp mask made just with the black, we will go back to it in a minute, but what we're going to do is start putting some darker umbers over what we just painted on a separate layer. So I am going to go to texture and just create a new layer, and we'll just call it wash 1. And then I'm going to use just a soft edge brush, my mop, and it makes it easy for me to blend. But what I'm going to do is take all the water out, all the way down just a little wee bit. We're going to use the brush, and that is a little bit too big, because we could do it because we're going to turn off our diffusion again. We're going to go back to the, well, let's go with the burnt umber this time. And then we're going to just start putting in, this is going to be pretty much even up, just to darken everything. Now you can still see our texture, but it's going to be toned down quite a bit. And I'm just keeping my brush okay. We're going to let that blend for a little bit, see what we get. Now what I'll do now is brush it in a little bit, go to my blend brush, and I have to leave it blend though after I blend it for a while. I could take out any dark spots I don't want if I want to even it up. And once it stops blending, then I'll blend out and diffuse everything even a little bit more, just like that. This will just give you some ideas how to do a couple of different washes over each other. Lock transparency on, go back to our water tool brush and just put a little wee bit down. Fast dry it, that'll help. And what we'll do is just show that's the wet part. I have the lock transparency, so I shouldn't be able to put water anywhere but where it was wet. Now let's see what that does. And we're getting a little bit of texture now. You see the blues coming out. It's more of a grayish pattern now, and it'll overlap the pattern behind it. I think I'm going to leave that there and keep it there. I'll lose what little I have. And once we start putting in our dark edges and shadows and everything, it'll clean up. It's just a preliminary wash. I fast dried it there. And then I will create a new layer. Just call it Wash Shadows 1. Here's what we're going to do. Go back to Wash Shadows 1. I'm going to get a harder edge brush, my mask brush. Go down with a burnt umber. We'll start with it. Here's where I might have a little bit of a problem with my pencil line myself, but I think I could do it. That's too opaque. Let me go back. I think I'm getting too much paint too quick. We're going to go back to a little bit of blue. Now that I have water in it. And this is what I meant by making wet areas and leave the paint blend within those wet areas. It won't leave it. There we go. Now we have to take the wall a good bit darker. You can see how I have a very subtle pattern of just blues and browns and then grays in between on the edge of that wall. We'll let that like that. And we're going to make the dark wall darker. and start blocking in our trim. We're getting there. Okay, next I'm going to move into the lamp shadow. And what I'll do is I'll paint that one freehand versus what you'll see I'm going to do with the black mask. I'll go ahead and turn off the black mask. No, I'll leave it on actually because I don't know where it's at. But what I will do is just go to the layer I'm on now and make a new layer so it's right above it, but it'll be below the lamp. And I'll just call it lamp shadow. And then what I want to start off with is even a little bit of orange, just so it has a nice glow to it, that it'll be glowing more than the rest of the wall with that sunlight shining through that pebble finish glass. And I am going to use my mop again. We're going to cut it way down, just put a little wee bit of orange in. And then I'll go with a raw umber. I can even put a little bit of quinacridone gold in it too, around the orange. And I'm going to put a little bit more water in it so it blends. Turn off our diffusion, give us some time. And we're just going to rough it in. I'm going to just leave the orange right in the middle. But I want to put my brightest vivid colors down first. Okay, then I'll go with the quinacridone gold. And I'm going to blend these out a little bit before I leave them diffuse. This will give me a better head start with a better blend. Okay, now we'll go to the raw umber, but then what I'm going to do is use a straight edge brush so I can do my edges. Too dark. I have this brush set too dark. Should change it, but I think I'll be able to blend it out. I'm going to leave myself enough room to be able to blend. Okay, let's do the rest of it. Just in case you're wondering, I have my rocker on my pen set as the back button goes to brush 4. The front button is a color picker. Okay, that's without the lines. Let's go ahead and let that diffuse. A little bit of orange in there. Okay, let's see what happens. Not bad, it's smoothing it out. Once I see the paper texture start to come through, we'll leave that like that. We could go back to it and add another layer and clean up the shadow a little bit if we need to. And then this shadow here, we're going to start making the front wall darker next. And then down in here also. And we'll put that below the lamp shadow. We'll do that next. Okay, I'm going to do the front wall next. That is going to be, let's see, wash shadows, that's right here. And then a lamp shadow, we'll put it under both of those. We'll just call it front wall. And there is a good bit of gold here. Now right here is the line of the edge of the front wall. I'll go back to my watercolor brush, and then I'm going to turn off the diffusion, and we are going to go back to our quinacridone gold. I'm going to use the soft brush again. Cut the color down just even a little bit more. The front wall is a little bit lighter than everything else. I'm trying to make the brush a little bit bigger. And let's see where we can put some gold down here. Again, I'll blend this out. We'll put a little bit of raw umber in there. Okay, this gets pretty dark up in here. Dark edge right there. I'll go to my raw umber. Put a little bit of that in here. Okay, I'm going to blend that out a little bit. Okay, I'm going to do the other side now. It has a little bit more of a linear pattern to it. But what I'm going to do is just the front wall. I'll do the side wall here in a little bit. Okay, let's let that blend for a little bit. Okay, now I want to do the side wall. It's going to be pretty dark. Okay, we'll let that blend a little bit. Just destroying some of the edges. I try to let the water do all the work. In a pinch, I will use the blend brush. I just don't want no round brush marks. It won't look like splotchy leaves. Okay, I'll fast dry that. We're going to make this wall darker. We're going to make this wall darker. But this one will be the darkest over here on the right-hand side. Let's go ahead and do that next. Okay, we're going to drop down to the wash shadow. That should be that one right there. And I'm going to finish this shadow going down the wall. And I took the liberty of lightening up my mask brush just a little bit in the background settings. And we'll see how it goes now. A little bit of water. That's big enough. And then I'm going to blend it a little bit too. We're going to go with the burnt umber. I'm going to turn off the diffusion. I'm going to blend this out. Okay, we're going to put a little bit of blue in there and leave that blend. I'm going to have my finger on the fast dry just in case. Okay, good. And then we're going to put a deeper stripe in here just to see how it looks. We're going to take the water down. I'm going to dry that layer too. Okay. Go back up with opacity a little bit. I think I might even go to sepia. Now that the layer's dry, that should stay sharp. I'll put a little bit of blue in that. Okay. Fast dry that just to set it. And then we will put a lighter line across there. Okay. Fast dry that, put a wee bit of blue in it here and there. Back in the corner. Okay. Erase that. I'm going to take I'm just going to go with burnt umber this time and not the sepia. I'll keep my edges straight. I'm going to blend again a little bit. I'll dry the layer so it doesn't bleed together. This is a part of the molding, so to speak, so I want to keep the edges straight. We're going to blend. Should use my Kleenex brush. Yeah, that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to go with the blue first. If I use my Kleenex to blend, it'll be a lot softer. That's not the blend brush though. That's better. Okay, I'll let that blend. Okay. Now I'm going to do the rest of the wall. And we will do it behind that. So put it front wall. Put it below the front wall. This is just so I keep things separate. So I'm going to use a completely different brush. I'm going to use my texture brush. Cut the size down a little bit. Cut the opacity down. I'm going to build it up slowly. Cut the waterway down because I don't want it to mix fast. I want to save some of the texture. We're going to just start with just raw umber first. You can see what kind of texture it's building. But I want to leave some light spots here and there. Losing my texture. Okay, now in the corners I'm going to put a little bit of burnt umber. And this layer is underneath the molding, so to speak. I'm going to put a little bit of blue in it too. Leave a little bit of sunlight up here. Okay, we'll let that mix, and then I'm going to make my straight, hard-edged shadow up here from the wall. Not too long, though, or I'll lose my texture. Okay, we'll fast dry that. And let's see, I'm going to put on the lamp shadow. As long as it's not on the same layer as anything close by. Go back to this, make it a little bit bigger, darker. Go with burnt umber first. And we're going to make a shadow right along here. Okay, let's see. We can make this wall a little bit darker. Let's make it a little bit darker. Now I'm just going to blend this out. I'm not going to leave it diffuse or I'll lose too much of the texture I got. I like to leave some here and there. We're going to go back to making this area up in here darker. That's the sunlight coming through. And right where those white patches are, I'm going to go back with some. Okay. Dry that up. And now I need some help with my pencil lines. I'm going to put in some real deep hints of joints just to see how they are. I'll put them on the very top. Make a new layer. And we're going to see where they're at. They are darker than everything. I'll just go with a straight sepia. A little bit of blue. Okay, now what I want to do is eliminate my pencil lines just to see what it looks like. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay, we'll go with that. We'll go back to the front now. We got a little ways to go yet. Okay, before I do anything else, I'm going to go back to the side wall and clean that edge up just a little bit, as I don't know if I want it that dark. And while I'm here, I will just take my eraser, go right down along that edge. Nice part about using multiple layers. That's the end of that. Okay, now we're going to go up and do the front. I am going to make it a separate layer. Okay, and then I'm going to stay with those same colors. Start off with a little bit more quinacridone. And just the raw umber will be my darkest color. Let me go back to my texture brush. And just a little wee bit of water. That's big enough, a little bit bigger. Okay. I'll put some down here. This has a little bit more of a gold look to the front. We're going to leave the diffusion off. This gets pretty dark right in here. I'll use a straight edge for that. That's light in there. A little bit darker here. Okay, and then we're going to go up to the raw umber. Take it down just a little bit. Okay, that's darker there. Okay, we're set there. We're going to put a little bit of dark right through here, and that's it. We'll let that blend just for a little bit. I'm going to make my straight edge over here. Let me see what's wet. Okay, I'm going to go to my mask. Make a straight edge right through here. Pretty dark. Too dark. That's black default. That's why. Okay, I'll let that blend a little bit. Trying to watch everything at once. Okay, we'll stop it there. I'm going to go back over this a little bit. Shadow will have to go darker. Okay, and that's it. Okay, now I'm going to dry that layer. I'm going to go with my sharp edged brush. Go to the joints. Okay, we'll fast dry that the way it is. I'm going to go to the shadow. Make it a little bit darker already. While I'm in the shadow, there's a little center spot right in here that's the actual light itself. So I'm going to put it in, but I'm going to tone it down a little bit. Now when I rub this out and scrub it out a little bit, just to blend a little bit better, I don't have to worry about losing my joints because they're on a separate layer. So I could just blend right over them and they'll stay there fine. Make this a little bit darker. It'll be a little bit more gold too. But we'll stop there for that. Make sure I fast dry everything. Yeah, it's not too bad. Okay, we're going to stay with the front wall here. Make it a little wee bit darker with a little bit more texture. And that might be it for it. And then once we do the side wall, we can move down below the bottom and start working on it. The right corner has to go a good bit darker. Okay, while I'm there, I'm going to finish this joint up. Drop down to the joints. Mask. I'm going to go with the sepia. That's a little bit too small. Right about there. This will have an edge like that. Okay, that's it there. We're going to put these in up here too. I go through the shadow, it's going to look more like a shadow. Okay, we're going to drop down here and do this bottom right corner. Okay, I'm going to take these down just a little bit with an eraser. I think I made them too heavy. Critical. I don't want them real eye-grabbing. Okay, there we go. We'll fix it up just a little bit. Okay, then what I wanted to do is go down and do this right corner is what we're going to do next. But what I wanted to show you is this right side right here is this right here. And because this area up in here will not be touching this down in here, then I could put it on the same layer. It'll just cut my layers back as to how many I'll have, only because these two areas are not touching, so I don't have to worry about them bleeding into each other. So this way, I'll just go ahead and start this layer right here on the right side one, and we got a ways to go with it because it has to be pretty dark. I'm going to use a texture one. We're going to drop down to I'll start with burnt umber, a little bit less water, and I'm going to start pretty dark. And I'll make that a straight edge over here. We'll let this bleed in too. I'll leave a little bit of texture there, and I'm going to take a little bit of raw umber, put it around here. Barely tell the difference. Quinacridone gold. And then I'm going to take my straight edge and put some burnt umber right here. Let those bleed together. And I'm going to take a little dusting of blue over too. Very little. It's pretty strong. This may even have to go darker yet. In fact, I'm going to go put a little bit of sepia in the corners. Okay, we'll let that blend. A lot of action there. That's looking pretty good. We'll soften up a little bit now. Okay, I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to dry that layer completely. Actually, I could just go to the joints and we will put those in. These are going to be dark. Put them out way down. Make it a little bit bigger. I'll put I accidentally put that on a joint layer, but I'm going to leave it there. Okay, and now I can do I'll put this on let's see, we'll put it on front wall. Okay, we'll leave that there for now. Okay, let's go ahead back and do a little bit more dark values to the left wall. I'm going to just put it on the right side since that will be separated. And that will be good. And then we are going to go back to watercolor brush, and I'm going to use the texture again, and I'll make it about right there, just a little bit of water. And I'm going to start off with the raw umber, and we're going to go ahead and make it darker. I'm going to turn that off. I'm just trying to make all kind of different leaf shadow shapes, so to speak. And again, we could refine them with a mask if we want to later. Put a little bit of blue. Just a little bit, just so I gray it down just a little bit. Cut it way down. Yeah, it's there. Okay, and then a little bit across here. Back to that. Okay, now I might as well just do the whole entire wall. This is going to be dark right in here, and I could clean this up later if it goes into the front wall. We'll have to do our joints and railing, everything else yet. I'm going to go back to a straight brush just real quick. Make it bigger. I'm going to take it way down because this brush is kind of dark. I want to make a little bit of a straight edge here. I'll erase it out if it goes in. Get my Kleenex. Okay, that will be it. And we're going to go back to our texture and a little wee bit of blue. I'll leave it bleed just for a little bit and blend. And we'll put in our joints just to see how those are. We're going to put the underneath of the ledge and everything yet too. All right, we're going to leave it blend. I got my finger on the fast dry button. Okay, I'm going to fast dry it there. It's not going to change too much because I didn't have too much water in with the colors. And then I'm going to dry that layer completely now. But then I'm going to go back in and clean this up right now. So I'll need my eraser. Zoom in a little bit just so we can see what we're doing. And this needs to be real bright here. Just like that. And I'll also clean that other one up. And that would be the front wall. Okay. Now let's go back to our joints layer. Go back to our small brush. I think I had it about at a 12 to do the joints. And then we'll make it a little bit darker. I'm going to use burnt umber for this one. Maybe with a little bit of blue. And then we're going to put this one in. Got it on blue. See what it looks like without the pencil lines. Okay, we're getting there. We're going to work on this area next, right in here on that ledge, and then start working on the front. We're getting there. Okay, let's go back to the joints. We're going to do this down here. We're going to make this a little wee bit bigger and then darker. Keep it fairly light. Lift a little wee bit of that out. And we're going to do this down here. This one's a little chipped up, I would say. A little bit of blue. Should have considered cobalt violet would have been probably nice in this. That color in traditional, that color works well with a lot of colors mixing. Okay, we're going to go back to this. Oh, we still have blue. Okay, let's put in the other ones while we're here. Okay, and we got to make that a little bit darker too. And some of these patches up here a little bit above, we're going to make those a little wee bit more softer. In fact, I could do that right now. Back down to the right side. I'm just going to blend them out just a little bit. Okay, we're going to make the lower left wall a little bit darker, then we'll move on to the front. And then we'll leave the post for last. Okay, let's do a quick update just to see where we're at. I'll open this up, and then I will also move this over here so we can see it too. And we can see that maybe we ought to take this left side a little bit darker and make it dark. I don't think it's quite as dark as the right side, but it's pretty dark. But this edge in here could go a little bit darker too. And then down in here, I'll make even the inside corner looks like to be the darkest. And then there's even some stains and marks on the stone itself that helps that way. But also the bottom part of this wall right here. And then we didn't even start the front wall yet. And then the post will be last. But the post will be pretty close to the way it looks right now, with the exception of some browns and golds and then some highlights. So let's go ahead and make our left wall a little wee bit darker, especially up in here. And then we'll go from there. And then maybe we even might experiment with the final painting at the very end. Let's go ahead and finish it up first. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit more color into the left side. I'll dust it over with the Kleenex. I don't think we need any more texture. I just want to make it darker. I'll make it bigger. I'm going to go with the burnt umber. Cut it down a little bit. And I'm going to turn off the diffusion just so things don't happen that I'm not aware of. And I'm going to leave that bright spot there. I'll put a little bit of blue in this also. Okay, and then I'm going to cut it down even more. The blue's pretty strong compared to the brown. And again, we could change these patterns with a mask later on if we want to. Okay, I'm going to let that mix for a while, but I'm going to keep my finger on the fast dry again. It's not going to do too much, only because I didn't put much water in the color again. Okay. Now I'm going to make some subtle lines here, just back and forth, but I got to be careful, as I will get a re-wet pattern. And again, I'm going to turn it off. I'm not going to add any more water to it. I'm going to go back to brown though. Later on, if I get some of this darker brown underneath and into the lamp, that won't be any problem, because then all I'll have to do is select the lamp itself and then erase out anything from any layer. I have several other demos on that same setup. And it's just to help you if you want to paint away and not worry about staying within the line, so to speak. I have to be careful what I'm doing now too, also, only because I'm putting it down on top of other layers that are already down on the same layer. So if I want to change things, I'd be changing the other layers also. Okay, I'm going to leave it blend just a little bit just to soften it up. That's it. Okay. I'm going to give it a subtle layer over top of that. I'm just going to make a layer over that, and I'm just going to call it glaze. And what we'll do is just put a little glaze of quinacridone gold back over that. It's going to be real subtle. Make it bigger. Just to put a glow on it. I'm barely touching the monitor. This would, of course, just be an optical mix. I can put a little wee bit more down in here. And traditional, this would be a little bit more critical because once you put it down, you're working on the same layer of paper and that's it. Whereas if you work on different layers in digital, you could change things if you need to. I'm going to also put, I'm going to fast dry that. I'm going to also put, I'll go back to the right side. I'm going to go back to the front now. I'll make it a front wall 3. I think I need to make the front wall just a little bit darker. I'll leave it go like that for now. We're going to go down to the bottom here. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do before I go down here and start working on the front, I want to clean this area up right here. This right in here is going to be real bright at the top of the rail, the stone rail. So I know it's going to be just about white. I'm going to just erase it out. Otherwise, if you wanted to experiment with things like that, then it would be better to make a mask and then try with a mask first, because you can always reverse a mask and your original paint layer will be there. So I'm going to go to the front wall. That's one of them. And get the eraser and then just go right along here. Texture, yes. There it is. And then we're going to erase it out. I'm going to leave that just white for now. And then that's it. And what we can do now, I'm going to take this color out also. Clean that up. And this is going to be dark in here. But then what I'm going to do first is put my greens and turquoise colors down first. And I'm going to make that a separate layer also. I want that above everything, so I'm going to put it right here above lamp shadow. Because it should be under the lamp. The lamp will be on top of it. Okay, and then now what we're going to do, move this over here. And then I'm going to take some of my turquoise. I'm going to first turn off the diffusion. And then we're going to go to, move that up a little bit. Let's see. What we'll first do is go to, I'm going to try just there's a little bit of texture in there, but I'll start off with the Kleenex first. And then start with my, and I'm going to go to, the light, Cobalt Turquoise light first. Kind of way down. We'll just take it a little wee bit at a time. But I'm going to go with the contours of the stone. I'm going to turn it back a little bit even more. There's a little bit down in here. This is kind of golden here. We're going to run it down the edge. We got to go darker greens yet. Little arc circles here. Keep with the contours of what I'm painting on. Get a little bit more water, just leave it blends a little bit. Be a little wee bit on top, not much, pretty white. Okay, and then we're going to run some down right here. And this has nothing to do with the shadows, so we don't have to worry about that right now. Looks like it's going right along that mortar joint. Put a little bit over here just to break it up. Okay, now I'm going to go with the green. I'm going to use a different size brush just so it doesn't match the exact same pattern that I just put down. This is just regular sap green, traditional. And I'm going to go with some turquoise deep also. And I could clean this edge up in here too. I want to straighten it out a little bit just to make it look like the contours. There's a good bit of green right in here. And a little bit of turquoise deep. Okay, let's let that blend for a few seconds. I stopped it pretty quick there. It was moving fast. I'm going to leave it like that. I'll blend that in just a little bit. And we're going to put the rest of everything together Let me erase that out. I'm going to leave that white up here for now. Okay, let me put in the browns and the golds on the front first, and then we'll go from there. And then we're going to go to the front. I'm going to make a front wall 3. Okay, then we're going to leave it. And this got to go real dark down in here. That's what I'll do next. Put a little bit more gold in the front. Let them all mix together. Okay, I need a straight edge now. Okay, and then a little bit of raw umber with my straight edge again. I gotta cut the color way down. Okay, I'm gonna fast dry that, then I'm gonna clean it up. This has to go dark here, but I'm gonna leave this. I'll leave that like that. Okay, and then we're gonna have some streaks here. Okay, time to blend. This has to go way dark with straight edge colors. Okay, let's bring out our edges a little bit better now. Okay, now we could go back up to our joints. Put some of those in just to see where we're at. Then I'll clean up things if I need to. First, we're going to go to here and get our number 12 out. And no water. I'm going to leave it off for now. And we're going to stay with the burnt umber. Now we could actually go with the sepia now. And this is the one way back in there. Changing colors for the joint color. Since some of these are in the bright sunlight. I'm going to draw the entire line in. Okay, now we can put these in pretty dark. Okay, I'm going to blend that out a little bit. I need one more edge in there. And this area in here has to go real dark yet. Now we're going to try and do it freehand. Okay, this side has to go real dark. I'm going to do that now. This is the edge. I'll put that on the joints. Okay, quick mix. We'll see what happens. That's it. Okay, we're getting there. We'll keep working on the front. Move into the railing eventually. Okay, next we're going to put in some of our deeper shadows right in this area here. And I'll just leave them on that same layer. I think it should be wash shadows. Yeah, that's it. We'll make them darker with a little bit of burnt umber and ultramarine blue. So I'm going to go to my straight edge right here. Make them a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to start with my burnt umber. And turn off the diffusion. And go with sepia. Might lose the joints, but that's okay. Blue's pretty strong until it mixes. Okay, that's it. Put a little bit more brown and sepia. Top of this blue right here. Okay, and then we're going to make this really dark in here too. This is just a little bit right here. And then down this way. A little bit of blue. Okay, we'll let that mix. Okay, now I'm going to go to a front wall. I'll start putting in some of these colors here. I'll round out this top ledge. Then this short wall right in here will have to go darker. There's an edge there. There's a little bit of a deeper green right in here. I'm hitting the fast dry every now and then. That block is a different color. I'll put a little bit of gold in here now. Okay, I think I'm going to go on to the railing next, just to lay it in place, just to see how it is. We still got to make some of the front, lower front darker. We're getting there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put in the railings. Now, they're in front of everything, in other words, including the joints. So I'll just keep them separate. I'll make a layer here. Just call it railings. And that's just the wrought iron railing here. And we're going to go real dark with it. Now, this one's fairly dark, but these sides are darker than the top. So we're going to start it. And then this is the top now here. I'm going to put a real dark line in it. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of cobalt blue in that. And dry that. And I'm going to dry the layer on that one. I'm going to go real deep for the edge. Okay, I'm going to stop it there and then go on this side. Okay, there's that one. Now, oddly enough, on this whole piece of railing here on the photo, there's no mounts for the railing to go on, so I'm not going to put any in. But I am going to put the shadow in. I'm going to put that on its own layer. I'll put it. Okay, then we're going to make it. We'll just freehand it in. Starts about right here. I'm going to go with raw umber first. I'm going to trim the top a little bit. Okay, then we're going to let that blend. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. We'll put the other one in. Go with that same raw umber. It starts out as a little bit on the grayish side for being raw umber. And that top is only right here. Okay, and then the underneath is reflecting. Okay, then the top is really dark. Or the sides, I'm sorry. Slippage. Now, if I want to lighten the top of that up a little bit, then what I would do is put a mask on it. And then now I'm going to go to just like a, I don't need to want to go black. I'll actually go to like a gold or a yellow. And then it'll only allow me to take so much off, and that's it. I have to make sure I am on the mask over here. And then once I paint on that mask, I'll be able to lighten it up. But it'll be just a little wee bit at a time, because I'm only using yellow, which is a very light shade of gray. That's how we could use a mask. That actually kind of blended together for me and I didn't catch it in time. We'll put the shadows and the railing mounts on now next. Okay, I'm going to just go in and rough in the lamp just to see how it's going to look with all our values. I think our shadow needs to go darker, but we're going to see how the lamp comes out first. So all I need to do is go to the lamp mask layer, grab my magic wand, and I already have it ready, and just click on that black. And since I painted everything in black that I want to paint for the post, that's it, I'm ready to go. So now all I have to do is turn off the lamp mask layer, go back to the lamp, and I'm ready to paint. And now I'll only paint within that area. So what I'm going to do is go to my texture brushes, and I'm going to start off with just a quinacridone gold first. And since it's going to be within that area, I'm going to lightly dust it with gold in the front here. And then I have to save this part of the top right in here for blue that's reflecting the sky. And then down here, if some of these areas need cleaned up a little bit, now that it's selected, I could just take an eraser over the entire thing, because I do have a hard highlight edge right through here that would be a little bit of trouble, since I overpainted the wall back in behind my mask itself. So what I will do is first take a eraser, make it a little bit bigger, it's on 100%, and then just take it over everything. I gotta find that layer first. That would be the front, I think. That's one of them. Yep. And that might be another one. Yep. And we could clean that up. And then we'll hit Control Shift. And there's the glaze. There we go. It's nice and clean now. Hit Control Shift at the same time. And that's front wall 2. There's front wall. There we go. Now my complete lamp is nice and clean. That one's on a joints. That one I would probably know, which is right there. Okay, that's it. We'll start off with just a clean slate, so to speak. And now I'll go back to the lamp layer. And I will grab my quinacridone gold and my texture brush. I'm just going to start out with a little bit of quinacridone gold right here in the front, because everything's going to go darker. I can put a little bit on this back side, but I want to leave the one part blue. And this is going to go way darker, but I have to just pick and choose where I'm going to put my dark. And then what we could do, just for the sake of argument, is go back over, since I have the white paper behind me, I could go back over with a mask to pull out my highlights. But it just has to be white paper in the background. We won't paint around those. We'll just pull those out because they're very subtle. And then what I can do, because then even like up in here at the very top up here is a very hard highlight right on that little ornament at the top. And then what we will do is go a little bit darker with the raw umber. And again, I will pick and choose. I have to put some lines in here too, a lot of line work. I can even put that on a joint layer. And then like the bottom of this will go darker with straight edges. I'll leave this blend in a little bit together. But this gives me a chance to use a texture brush, just so it's not a solid color up and down there. In fact, now I'm getting cauliflower effects, and I'll just keep on leaving them bleed out. They'll slowly disappear depending on your water and color settings. And then I am going to put the blue on. But what I'll do is I'll wait till everything dries, and then I'll dry the layer, because I want the blue nice and sharp edged only to this one panel right here. And I have to put some harder edges on. Then what I can do, just to show you, is I will zoom in, and then what I can do is go a lot darker, but I'll have to have my finger on the fast dry. But I'll even start my highlight just like this, straight down the middle, and I'll leave this bleed a little bit. That's it. We're going to take this down like this. There's a real strong highlight there, and this almost goes black. So I'll darken up the color as I go. That's it. And then now we'll put some on this side. I'll have a nice straight edge on one side of my brushwork and a nice soft edge on the other side with the help of the selected area. That's it. And we're going to put some blue to this. It'll gray it down. There we go. Leave my highlight at the edge. That's it. Yeah, that's looking better. And then now I'm going to go in, finish that up. And then there's some line work that even has to go darker. My highlight stays straight up the one area. Okay. I'm hitting the fast drive pretty quick. I don't want to lose my highlight because it'll bleed together. That's it. Oop, almost. I don't need it the whole way down. In fact, it's broke up right there anyway. And then now I want to get me started. And I'll have to put a straight edge on the bottom of it. I want to put some blue in that also. Leave a mix. Okay. And now I'm going to dry the layer. Make sure it's dry. Yes, it is. Go back to my straight edge brush. I'll make them a little bit bigger, but a lot less water. And we'll start with the sable first. Now I could go outside the line, so to speak, and paint right over my selected area. Give that a nice sharp edge. Put a little blue down, it'll grade down. Not one side's really lighter than the other on this. Just for the sake of argument, I'll make one a little bit lighter. And then I could also change that with a mask. I'll lighten up one edge. I think this edge just looks a little wee bit lighter. We'll do that with a mask. And then I have a real fine line here. I'll draw it back to a 10. This is the blue. Oh, shaky. Okay. Go back over the blue with the brown now. Okay, leave that like that. Let's see what we got. It's looking all right. Then this side's going to be a little wee bit darker. Okay, now I could save that selection or just go back to my lamp mask and reselect it again. If I want to save the selection, then I just go up to here and then edit and then selection and then just save selection and name it whatever you want. But otherwise, in this case, I've been doing this longer than the save selection was an option. So I'm kind of used to doing it this way. Okay, let's see how that works. And then now our lamp is starting to shape up a little bit. And in fact, we'll deselect just to see what we got. Yeah, that's not looking too bad. We'll go with that and keep going. Okay, I'm going to go back down and darken up the front wall again now that we got the base of the post in. It's looking half decently started. And then what I will do this time, though, to protect my lamp, I'll just go back up to the mask, turn it on, select it, and then turn it off again. But then what I'll do this time is invert the selection. So now I'll be able to work anywhere but the lamp. And this way I could go down and make this a little bit darker and put a little bit more gold in it. So we'll go back down. I'm going to try front wall. Yeah, that'll be okay. That's where I'll stay on this one. That's down there. Okay, that's good. We'll go up here. And then this is light right in here. But it's pretty dark around the base a little bit. And that will be good because then there's a couple of highlights on the base of the post itself. And to show those highlights off, we need some dark colors around it. I'll go ahead and do that. And then what I want to do is start with my straight edge first. Yes, I have burnt umber. I have the color way down, a little bit more water. Just a little bit. I'm going to start right in here. I'll go down just a little bit. And then I'm going to go to the texture brush. I'll quick dry that. Take this down a little bit. Let that blend. I'm going to wash a little bit of gold back over this area right in here. Oh, wrong color. Not looking. Okay, then the underneath of that rail got to go a good bit darker too also. We're going to take darker colors back over here first. Start with my gold. I'm going to have to make that shadow darker too. Yeah, it's blending out nice. A little bit down in here. We have to clean up our white again. That'll be fine. Okay, back to the burnt umber. Lamp, shadow. That would be it. And I'm going to go back to the straight edge. Make it a little bit deeper. I'm scribbling intentionally just so it doesn't come out as a perfect gradation. Only leave some light and dark areas here and there, just within the shadow itself. I'll sneak some quinacridone gold in. It's real dark there. Right in here is darker. I get my Kleenex for that. Okay, and then right in here is darker. I'm going to blue grade down a little bit, make it darker yet. But it'll keep it on the gray side. There we go. And I want to make these areas a lot darker. I'm going to go back to my joints. 12, I think, was the magic number. Very little water. It'll blend just a little bit. This is kind of completely dark back in this corner. And remember, the whole idea is just to give you ideas of whatever you decide to paint from or of, especially if you're working for any kind of photos. Just to break down your lights and darks. And that's it. And I found with digital, the brushes will make a difference as far as how easy you can to blend. Touch that up just a little bit. Okay, then we're going to make this darker down in here. We'll go back down to the front wall. There it is. We're going to stay with that brush. Get this right in here. We're going to make it a little bit bigger though. Hitting the fast dry every now and then. There's a white stain right in here too. I'm going to leave it there. There's my hard edges of the intentional re-wet. Every now and then you may need it. If I want to, I can soften them up a little bit. We're going to make this corner dark also. And let me still go with the gold first. Okay, that worked twice. A little bit of raw umber right here. Let that blend out. There we go. And a lot darker right here. There's a little bit of a white edge there. Okay, then now the raw umber. And blend it out nice. Let me soften this line just a little bit. And we'll go back to the Kleenex. The Kleenex is a soft edge brush, so it does a much better job of blending. Let's see what we got. Okay, we're getting there. We got still ways to go. The railing and make the front darker, and then the left side has to be darker too. And then I might just dust a little wee bit of gold in these areas right here, just a quinacridone gold in there, just to not leave a pure white. I'd rather leave the focal point up here, and if this stays just about white, then it'll be the lightest part of the painting, where highlights down in here could be a little bit more on the gold side. And the same thing with these up here. I'll darken those up a little bit since they're on the pretty heavily shadowed side of the wall itself. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, I'm going to go back to the high left side, the top left side. Do a little bit more on it. I'm going to make it a little bit darker. And I think that is on the right side. Yep, that's it. And we will make this area a little bit darker, actually, a little bit of everything. Go back to my texture. We'll start out with the burnt umber. And then I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Just a dust over. And it will bleed into the colors there already. I'm going to put some brown here and there, and then I'm going to go back over some areas with blue. It'll tone those sections down. And again, we could change the texture or leaf pattern, so to speak, with a mask. Let's go with a little bit of blue. Just leave it gray up just a little bit. Underneath this rail has to go a good bit darker yet too. There's some patterns here that get pretty dark, but they're a lot smaller. A little bit of blue. Okay, that's a little bit better. I'll take a little bit more blue to it. Blend it out just a little bit. Go a little bit deeper sepia. Closer to a black. Okay, time to make the bottom darker. Okay. I'm going to put that block in down at the bottom. So I'm going to go back up to the joints for that. Leave that just like that. A little bit of a straight edge, a little bit of a dark, soft edge. Okay, and then I'm going to put more color right in here. I have to start with the straight edge again. No, maybe not. Okay, I'm going to soften this edge up just a little bit. This has to go a good bit darker. There's a light colored edge right on the tip of that, just like that. I don't want to lose it. There we go. Okay, let's see what we got now. Okay, the shadow of the front rail will be next. Let me go back in and work on our lamp a little bit. Getting close. Okay, let's go ahead and get started on our railing. I'm going to go up and just we'll put it on the railing itself. That should be okay. Actually, I'm going to make a separate layer. Let's call it mounts. I don't want it to bleed in with the railing. I need straight edges there. And we'll zoom in. And then I'm going to start with a little bit less color. Oh, that's big enough. We will start with the raw umber. And we're going to fill this in. This is bright up in here. Let's give it a light dusting. I'll leave it blend in. There we go. Okay, let that blend. There it is. Okay, then now that's in the sun. Okay, now we need to cast our railing shadow right across that. Now this is fairly light here. And there's a little bit of a mount right here. Let that blend together. It goes right up in here, and then this goes like this. Looking closer now, my drawing's wrong. Okay, then now I need to make this darker. Take it down a little bit, make it darker. And now we're going to make everything darker up above. So we are going to start right here. I'm going to dry the layer first. Let that blend together. Okay. A little bit of blue in the shadow. Let that blend. There we go. Okay, and then now I'm going to shade the bottom of it just a little bit. Let that blend out. There we go. We can bleed that in a little bit. We're going to go to our Kleenex brush. There we go. And then I'm going to make it a little wee bit darker now. With the sepia. Okay. And up top here is going to be a little bit of raw sienna. Okay. This is quite a bit enlarged, 150%. Okay, then I'm going to take my shadow now, blend it off down into the, we got to do this one first. This one has a really gold glow to it. Okay, go back to our burnt umber, we'll start there. We'll see how shaky my drawing was, moving this close. I have to be quick about it so it doesn't blend into my lighter areas. With the sepia, let's add a little bit of blue to that. Trying to get a nice neutral gray. Let that blend. There we go. And then up top is a little bit darker too. Okay, and a little bit of blue. Okay, now here's where we need our shadows. We'll put it down on the railing shadow. Let that blend out. There we go. A little bit of blue in that. Well, let's go with a little bit of sepia too, because it's pretty dark back in here. This is all of the mount itself. Let that blend out. There we go. Put a little bit more blue back in here. Make this darker. Have the front part of the shadow with a little bit of a glow to it. There we go. And then we're going to put in the shadow itself. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. A little bit too big. I'm going to start with burnt umber. I'm going to give it sketchy here just so it's not a solid color, so my stone patterns come through. And it's barely visible back in here. Let that blend out. Try to make it a little bit on the patchy side. Let that blend out. I'll add some blue because it got to go darker. Okay, now all those overlapped marks from my brush disappeared when I left it blend a little bit. I'm going to make some areas darker, like right in here. I even see a lot of greens in here when I open up my reference much bigger. Okay, we're going to put a little bit of sepia. I'm lightly dusting it on, just barely. Trying to indirectly create a highlight on the mount. Let that blend out. There we go. Put a little bit here and there. It looks like I might have to take the joints a little bit darker and bigger in the front wall. There we go. It's just going to disappear off into that. Let that blend a little bit. There we go. Add our blue, especially in where I want it to be darker. And this is just the way I work. Transparent also. The only difference is I'd mix these two colors together before I put them on the painting. But it will mix them for us. There we go. You get dark down in here. I'm going to put a little bit more sepia. Let that blend. Okay. Let's see what we got. And that's not bad. And then we'll make some things darker and then go back into the lamp. Okay, I'm gonna make the front a little bit darker. And we'll go back to our texture brush. Good bit smaller, way less color. Take the water back a little bit. Then I'm going to put it, we'll put it on the front. Let's see. We'll put it on this one because this one is different than what's already there. So I don't have to worry about losing my patterns. Okay, and we're going to make this a little wee bit darker. Right in here a little bit. The light seems to be skimming right across the side of the wall. Let that blend out a little bit. And what I will do is go to my straight edge again. I got a little bit bigger. I'm going to make a nice hard edge right in here. Lightly dusting, let it blend out a little bit. There we go. Okay, I'm going to go back to the joints and make them darker. I think our magic number was 12. And we're going to stay, I'm going to go with burnt umber. Just here and there, especially where it's dark. And go through the shadow, but not the railing. Okay. Let's see what we got. Okay, that's coming along. Okay, let's move back up into the lamp for now. Okay, let's work on a lamp a little bit. A little larger just so we could see what we're doing. And I'm going to go to the lamp itself. And I am going to start with my burnt umber very lightly. In fact, I'm going to have a texture brush on now since I'm protected. First thing I got to do is go up to the selection and invert the selection. There we go. And then I'm going to go with my texture brush. And it could be a little bit smaller, but I still have some texture to put in just to give some texture here and there before I start making my hard edges. This will maybe just add a little bit of character to the lamp itself. And any of these lighter colors will get covered back over by my straight edges. Let that blend a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to dry that layer because I'm going to go with some straight edges. Make sure it's dry. Yes, it is. Okay, now we're going to create some hard edges. This is going to be a little bit darker here. Right along the edge. And I could even blend that if it doesn't blend enough with the water. There's a hard edge right here. Another one right here. We'll indirectly leave our highlight right down the middle. That's the edge. Okay. And then I'm going to put in some hard edges. Make sure it's dry. Go with sepia. These are shadowed edges, so they're going to be pretty dark. One's going to be right here. A little bit of texture here and there. Barely touching. Okay. There's another subtle one right here. Okay. Another strong one right here. There's a big one up here. Those stick out a little bit. I'll have to turn off the selected area for that. Okay, and then I'm going to make this a little bit darker. We're going to go back to burnt umber. I gotta be careful because I have my detailed hard edges on the same layer. But I think I could pull it off. Doesn't need much blending, but then also try not to touch the straight edge lines either. As long as I don't, they won't blend together. Okay. Over here a little bit. Then we'll be able to do even the inside of the panes of glass. It's like a marble finish. Okay. Just giving some squigglies here. Just to make it a little bit darker here and there. There we go. And then we're going to get our Kleenex brush and put it on blend. Okay, now I'm going to put the roof on a separate layer. And I'm going to put it right up above the lamp. I won't even name it. We'll call it roof. And now I'm going to start off with burnt umber on a straight edge. We'll let this blend together. There we go. Now we're going to put a little bit of blue on this side, but a lot of blue on the other side. There we go. Let that blend. Just a little bit of blue here and there. Nowhere near as much as on the other side. Let that blend. There we go. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to even start with blue maybe. I'm going to start with a real light coat, raw umber. Let that blend. Even though it's streaky, still going to blend. Here comes the blue. Okay, there we go. I'll put a little bit more burnt umber in this, just here and there. So, there we go. And a little bit of burnt umber. Okay, let's see what we got. There we go. Blue subtle enough. Just a little bit stronger blue, barely noticeable. I gotta make a sharp edge over here on one side or the other just to define the two sides better. We'll go ahead and do the top next, and then we'll go inside and try to do our pebble glass and our light bulb inside. Okay, let's go ahead and get the top of the lantern done, and I'm going to make this a little wee bit darker. And you just see how rough and loose it is when we get this close. But what I'm going to do is go to a sable real light, and then I'm going to cut back the water because I want to keep it a straighter edge, just to define a little bit of an edge. That's it. Okay, and then now I'm going to go ahead and go back to the lamp itself. Let's see. We'll put this in, because it'll be separate now too. Start with the burnt umber. This side's a little bit darker. Leave that blend out a little bit. There we go. And I'm going to start with a little bit of quinacridone gold over here. Okay. And put a little bit of burnt umber up here underneath the overhang. Okay, that's it there. And then we'll go back to the roof, put that on. And this side looks like it's literally reflecting the wall. So I'm going to leave it pretty light, but then this knob up here is reflecting off of it. So I really like to know what I'm painting and why I'm painting the specific shapes that I am. Okay, first I'm going to make it real light. And I'm going to actually leave it the color that it is. Let that blend out a little bit, but then I'm going to soften that edge up. There we go. And the reason why is I'm going to reflect that in it. Then we're going to go back to our hard-edged brush. Make this side a little bit darker. And the overhang itself is going to be real dark. Let that blend. There we go. Okay, and then now I'm going to go back to the lamp itself just to keep it separate. Take it down a little bit. Put a real dark one in there. I really can't even see it because of my pencil lines. Let's turn that off. There we go. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to put a little wee bit of dark shapes inside there, but I'll have to invert it only because that's the inside of the opposite side. So we'll invert it. And let's see if I did it. Yes, I did. That's it, just a little bit. And then we'll go back and invert it again. Okay, and then now I'm going to just put some textures and highlights on this guy right here. And then he has one more, and it's kind of rounded like this. And then I'm going to feather that in. There we go. And then later on, I'm going to put a real strong highlight on that. But what we could do at the very end, if we want to pull out our real strong highlights, we could double the layers, merge those, save the original painting itself in the layers, but then just work on the final layer and turn off all the other layers. And that way we could have backup parts of the drawing just in case if we need it. And now I'm going to also reflect this guy a little wee bit. It'll probably be too small to see anyway. Right, like that. And this side isn't as much. It's obviously at a different angle. Okay, that's it. Let's see what we got. Okay, now what we're going to do now is we're going to turn off the drawing. It already is. And deselect just to see what we got. And I think my lantern could go a little bit darker in right here in the middle. We'll just add a little bit more color to it. So I'll just hit Control Z, put my selection back up, and we'll be ready to darken the lantern a little bit more. Okay, let's go ahead and make our top of our lantern a little wee bit darker. And I'll just leave it on the lamp. There we go. Actually, I'm going to keep it separate. We'll keep the patterns that we have there. I'll just make one more layer. And this way we won't lose what we got as far as texture goes. And then now we're going to go with our texture brush. I'll start off with the quinacridone gold again, just to make it a little bit stronger here and there. And we'll go with the raw umber. This way I won't have to worry about losing any of my sharp edges wherever they are. Let's go with the sepia, a real light dusting of sepia. And we'll let that blend in a little bit. And then again, it's really nice to be able to use a texture brush to create some kind of an uneven surface colors, but not worry about going outside the line, so to speak. This up in here is a little bit darker. And we'll let that bleed out just a little bit. I can make some areas lighter, but then on one side I'll have a transition from dark to light. On the other side I'll have a real hard edge thanks to our selection area. And it is quick this way too. But we have to decide exactly what we want painted first. Okay, let's try that. Dry the area. Turn it off. That looks a little bit better already. Deselect. Yeah, that's a little bit better. All right, we'll leave it there, and then we're going to go inside the glass next. Okay, let's go ahead and put in our glass. Now, what I want to show you real quick is the photograph itself. I'll bring it down here bigger. What the glass is actually a pebble finish. So I'm going to try and duplicate that. A little bit of rough pattern. These shadows right here going down dark area are actually these brass plates on the opposite side of the lamp. We're not going to worry about those right now. I could put those in by hand if need be. But what I want to do is duplicate that pebble finish of the glass. We're going to take it down to normal size. And now what I want to do is just select those areas. So if I go back to my mask right here, turn it on, I will select outside of it, and I'm going to put there. And I selected this one area right in here. But what I could do is go to add, select that area, select that area, select that area. And we're going to put all these into selection because they are glass. And what it will allow me to do is use a bigger small texture brush that may not fit within these areas if I inverted my original selection. So now I'm just making a completely different selection that will only include the glass, and that's it. So now that's what I did. I'm going to put it above the railings. We'll just call it glass. And now what I need to do is go back to my watercolor brushes, and I am going to use my sand brush right here. And what I will do, have this much water in it and about that much opacity. Then we're going to start off with a sepia. Move that out just a little bit. And we're going to, actually now let's go with the raw umber, but we're going to use it real light. We'll start off real light, but being that it's on its own layer, if it's too dark, then we can adjust the opacity. Now if we start down with it, very subtle. Now what I could do is then put on the transparent lock so I don't make my pattern any bigger, and then put more color over that, and then it'll only go over what color's already down. So in other words, it won't end up with just a solid gray mess. It will make some of those areas darker. I'll turn it up a good bit. There we go. And I'm going to try and get a linear pattern. This way it'll keep the amount of gray area that it's going to make down. Dry it. Let's see what we got. Yeah, that's not bad. And then what I'll do even too is go back and lift some of it out. We'll use the eraser. I'll lift some of this out. Lighten it up on this side. That's working pretty good. Because now again, remember, I'm only going to be able to go, since I have the lock transparency on, wherever the paint is. If I take it off, I'll break up those shapes a little bit, which might be better. Yeah, that's better. We'll leave this side a little bit dark here. And then we'll just give a real subtle hint. We'll make sure that's dry. And then what we will do is go back to a real small brush. About there. And I'm going to take it down about here. No water at all. I don't want it to blend out. And I'm going to go back to just a sepia, and I'm going to lightly dust just some shapes just like this, just as the shadows of those other ones. And it's skipping exactly the way I would want it to for pebble glass. And then there's even designs on the opposite side that you could see through the glass. So I'll just give a little bit of hint here and there. There's one more right here. That's skipping just nice. And one very subtle one right here. Okay, and then right up above the ball, I need my drawing back. Right up above the bulb here itself. That's the back side of it. Okay, and while we're there, we'll go ahead and shade the bulb. I'm going to put that on a different layer. There is a shadow on it too. Now we're going to put it behind the glass. And I'm going to take my hard edge, make it bigger, and then I'm going to put a real light coating down the raw umber, because that's kind of more of a gray anyway, just to give a shape. I'm going to take my Kleenex brush and diffuse that in to make it look spherical. Put it on blend. We'll blend that out real nice, just like that. And then this side down here is actually a little bit on the brassy side. I'll go back to this just to give it a hint. There we go. And then I want to put a shadow across that. So we're going to try and put it on the same. I'm going to dry that. I'll put it on the same layer. Take it down in size. We're going to stay with the raw umber because it's kind of grayish. And then we're going to put a shadow from that bar right across the bulb. We get blended out too. And it's blending, but doesn't appear to be, only because I have the texture of the glass also in front of it, so it's not going to look like a real clean blend. Okay, there we go. Let's see what we got. Turn off our drawing. Turn off the selected area. Yeah, that's not bad. I think I can even create, just to create the light a little bit brighter, what I'll do is I'll cut back on the glass, but because I left it on a separate layer with a bulb, then I know I won't interfere with the bulb at all. But what we could do is lighten up the glass area just a little bit more, and then all we'll have to do is take our sand brush to it and use it as an eraser. We'll do that now. Okay, I'll just hit Control Z. That should bring back our selected area. And just to help us out, I'll turn off the mask. That would be right here. And then what I'll do is lighten up the glass just a little bit more even. But I'll do it in a real, yeah, that's quite a bit. Yeah, that's a little bit too dark. But we're going to take our sand brush, just so we have a real strong texture, make it bigger, and we're going to use it as an eraser. I'm going to go back over the glass. I'm going to take the, I don't want to remove those edges from the back side. That's looking lighter already. Just a little bit on this side. And we're not bothering the light bulb at all. It's on its own layer. Okay, let's try that. Yeah, that's better. We'll deselect just to see. Yeah, there we go. That's a little bit better. Looks more like a sunny day now. It's barely there, the textured glass, but when we zoom in, we could see it. And some of that's even the texture of the paper too, so it'll all be there. We'll make a couple little marks here and there, clean things up, And then that is one thing I want to do. But first I want to go over with the picture itself, and we'll do that now. Okay, now what I wanted to make sure I showed you was these areas are just about pure white. But the only difference is I know that I was going by the photograph, but I was the one who took the photograph. Meaning that if I open it up and show you real close, this area in here is all just about pure white, but even though I know it was not pure white stone, meaning that I took the photographs, so I know what happened was I was exposing for the darker areas. I wanted to know what was going on with the shadows. And I don't mind if my highlights go pure white with a watercolor reference, because that's what I would like anyway. But my point is, just be careful what kind of photographs you're going from, because it may be a limitation of a camera exposure or focus range versus something that you may not want to duplicate in your painting. Now, if that's what you want, that's fine. But if not, sometimes it really does help to know what you're painting. Okay, now this one I could pretty much call pretty well done, but we will change some things around and do some things with it now that it's done. Okay, just to show you the last couple things as to what we could do, we will go put in our lines, darker lines, since we deselected the lamp now. I had to do that after it was deselected. But what I want to show you up close is just this right here, this line right here. If this was a little bit too crisp and we wanted it broken up more, we could do it two different ways. I could go back to my Kleenex brush and then just put it on blend and then slowly soften the edge. I will hit Control Shift to find that layer. That would be front wall 2. And then this could break up the edge as much as we want and blend out those colors. Or to do the other half of it, we could put a layer mask on it. And then what I would do is go to a medium value color. Then I can't take it any lighter than that. So in other words, if I go to black and make it black, it's going to erase it completely. But I may have to fine tune either my pressure or the amount of black I'm using. So this will only let you go so far, and that's it. And what I'll do is put that up a little bit more, since I'm only using a pretty much medium value color. But then if I go back over now, what I'll be doing is erasing it and getting rid of that edge. And then it's literally blending in to the colors that are behind it on other layers. So that's if I don't want to extend the blend at all, I could do that. Or if I want to keep the edge where it's at, but just lighten it up, a mask works pretty good. Then if I turn that mask off, I'll right click on it, use mask, I'll click that off, and there it is again. So depending on how you want to handle things, I'll put the mask back on and it'll be back the way it was. But what it'll do is it will allow you to leave sometimes some of the edges where they're at and not move anything, because if you start blending, then you may be increasing the size, and if you don't want to, then that will be the way it is. Now this in here, we could clean this up quite a bit as far as the edges go, but it always doesn't have to be razor sharp. And then also, one last thing I really wanted to show you was if we go back to this right here, I'm going to hit Control Shift, pick the layer, right side, that would be correct. Now what I can do is I'm going to duplicate that layer, and I will do that and then turn one of them off, just so we have a backup of the same thing. Because now what I will do is go to my water tool and select this pattern right here. I got a whole bunch of water on it. Now what I'm going to do is keep on flooding this area with water and let it take off and experiment, and it'll call flower out. And then that way, depending on what I'm left with, I may like it better than what I had. But this is just the experimental stage of it, so to speak. And then I could do it on the other side, or I could also do it down here on the bottom. and let it blend out. And then right now, see, that's even a little bit better up there because that looks more like a splotchy leaf pattern than it did before. I put some more in here, break this up a little bit more, let that bubble out. And if it gets too fine, it might be too confusing, but if it's splotchy, like up in here, that might be better. But then keep in mind, I fast dried it. I could go back over just certain areas again and let it rework that area. And you got to be patient to give it a chance to cauliflower out. And once it starts, there it goes. Now it'll break up some of them shapes. I'm getting a pretty big cauliflower shape up here, but then I could break it up. But I got to be careful not to lose what I had if I like it. But there again, now I'm getting some interesting patterns there. But do they loan themselves to leaves being projected onto the side of the building with shadows? Now this is coming out in here. That's no problem. I could just erase that out later. But it depends again on how creative you want to get or how you want your end result to look. But as long as you keep things in layers and then duplicate them, you will be able to experiment if you want. Because the reason why is when you put this down, depending on your settings, your brushes you're using, everything about it, it is very spontaneous. In other words, you get an effect, you may not be able to duplicate it, or may be very hard to duplicate what you had. So just like traditional watercolors, if you see something you like, you better save it. We do the same thing over here. Let this blend out a little bit. And then it's going to break up that pattern I had before with a brush, but it's going to do its own thing now. And then, of course, since I have the joints and everything else on their own layers, then I don't have to worry about my straight lines or edges of the joints of the block getting messed up or bleeding out. They're on their own layer, so I could just concentrate on the areas that I do want to change creatively. There we go. There's that one. And then, of course, if this pattern is too tight, in other words, too fine, then I could get more of a coarse brush and just concentrate on bigger splotches at a time that may loan themselves better to what would be leaves projected on the side of a wall with shadows themselves. But other than that, if I go to one last thing, we were going to pull out highlights, and what I would do is hit the Control Shift again and go to our lamp and then put a mask on it. And then just to show you, if I go back here, I'll use the Kleenex. Actually, I could use the Kleenex, would be a nice clean one. And then I could take this one down pretty good. I'll use the sepia. And then if I go back over, it's taking it out pretty fast. See, that's what sepia is doing. I'll back that up and I'll show you the difference. And now if I go to just like a raw umber, cut the amount down a little bit, and I'm going to make the brush a little bit smaller. Now if I go, it's going to take a little less off at a time. And what it does is it makes it more controllable as to if I just want a subtle highlight, it's easier to control. There's also one on this side. Now I'm going to make that one small. We're going to back that up, and then we're going to just barely catch the edge. Just like that. And that took it down to white pretty quick. And then that would be it. So just to give you some ideas, you could see the difference here of where I stopped with the layer mask, and then how I created my own highlight just by painting around it the rest of the way up. I could change that quite a bit if I wanted to with a layer mask. So we will call this one complete. I tried to do this one as a play-by-play action, so you knew what was exactly on my mind on everything I did with this particular demo. I don't know if it'll be better or worse. Please comment below if you think it's better or worse. But what is usually on my mind, I often make changes or adjustments as I go, just to see the painting evolve in front of me and then go from there. Otherwise, this one is done. Until I see you out in the field or back at the studio, thanks for watching.